He's Howard Eibach, a former copywriter and creative director and the author of 2 books on the creative brief.
And he's Henry Gomez, an ad agency strategist with 30 years of experience. Together, Henry and I are the Brief Brothers. We love talking about creative briefs, briefing, and advertising. Henry, we have an old friend back today to talk about his new book. His name is Cameron Day, and that's all I need to say. Let's join the conversation. Henry, we are back, and we have with us an old friend. He needs no introduction. He's been here. This is his 4th appearance. And we're both delighted to talk to him because he's got a new book, and he's going to be back again because he's got a book that has going to be coming out, even another book, which we'll talk about in a minute. But right now, yeah, you're a little out of focus here, but that's okay. Cameron Day, welcome back to the Brief Brothers.
Thank you, gentlemen.
I'm going to
try to talk slowly today because whenever I listen to one of these after I do it, I sound like I'm on trucker speed. I don't want to be on trucker speed.
Okay.
What speed do truckers take?
Whatever keeps them on the road.
Yeah. Well, listen, let me jump off by saying you are now our most frequent flyer guest on the Brief Brothers. This is number 4. And as I mentioned, you've got a 5th book coming out here pretty soon, but before the end of the year. So you'll be back maybe before the end of the year, but definitely by, he's teasing it. We're going to give you a chance to tease that. So let me ask you this, Cam, and I have the pleasure of being in the same, almost the same zip code as Cameron. So we have the opportunity to get together for breakfast or lunch from time to time. And that's really a cool thing for me. So as our first 4-time guest, let me ask you this. So you called Mad Man let me quote it now, careening crash course told through the flaming wreckage of a 4-decade career. What finally made you tell that version of your story? Unfiltered, unapologetic, and maybe a little dangerous.
I think you get to a point in your career where you just don't give a fuck anymore. Because I figure, look, I'm not going to not get hired by Liquid Death if I say something controversial. They're not hiring me anyway, so I'm going to call it like I see it. How about that?
Names were changed to protect the guilty, though, I think.
Oh, yes, they were. Well, I look at it this way. I've made mistakes in my career. I wouldn't want somebody talking about my mistakes with my name attached. So if I'm talking about something that somebody did that I thought was a mistake or that wronged me, the least I can do is be self-aware enough to realize we all make mistakes in advertising, right? I'm going to tell the story, but I'm not going to publicly embarrass you by using your name.
Which I think it's a good setup for the conversation. So this is a memoir, right, about your life in advertising. It's a series of very short and very readable chapters, which are all anecdotes about specific moments in time where you were working on a piece of business, on a pitch, doing a presentation, whatever, and something happened and you're telling that story. And some of them are great, victory stories. Some of them are, terrible coworker or boss stories. And for me, and I'll let Howard ask because I know he's got a bunch of questions and he's normally the interviewer. But for me, I just want to say up front that what I really enjoyed about it is I think all of us who have spent a significant amount of time in this industry will recognize the archetypes that are depicted within the book. So we may not have had that exact same experience, but we experienced something very similar. And we've interacted with the personality types, particularly the bad ones that I have identified and write so eloquently about in the book. And it's a lot of fun. As I mentioned, the chapters are very short. You're very humorous in your writing, and I identified with a lot. And maybe toward the end of our conversation, I'll tell you a few of my war stories that mirrored yours.
Oh, I like that sound of that.
Well, okay, so let me throw another question out at you, Cam. And, it's just interesting that Henry mentioned the fact that, each of us has our own set of experiences, so they may not match yours identically, but it reminded me of that famous quote from Mark Twain: history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. So there's a lot of rhyming going on in
Sure.
this compilation of stories. So we all know that you've written three advertising survival guides already. And each time you wrote one of those volumes, you came on and talked about it. The beginning part of your career, managing the middle part of your career, managing the high level part of your career. So now this book feels more like a post-mortem. What would you say the through line is between all of them? What were you trying to survive now that
Well,
you weren't before?
the thing I never really thought about when I started in this business is, hey, how can I do this for 4 decades? And I know a lot of really, really good creative people who have 20-year careers. I think that's more the norm. So I thought, well, wouldn't it be interesting to try to actually have a sustainable career and basically accept some of the realities, like you're not going to be offered the same job when you're 55 years old that you're going to be offered when you were 30. I mean, there is such a cultural bias towards youth. I think I just came to accept that. But the other thing is, because I'd never stopped writing, it became a challenge to get to the higher level jobs, because I wasn't just going to the meeting and holding the client's hand or politicking a whole bunch, which is not to say there isn't a certain amount of politics in advertising, but I just tried to really keep the focus on ideation and writing. And when I had teams under me, I tried to instill this idea that I want you to beat me because I'd like to see you win, but I'm not going to let you win.
That's a very interesting and I think unique take from creative director position. I read a piece many years ago, had to have been going on 15, 20 years ago, and it talked about, I don't remember who wrote it, I would give credit, and it was a great piece, and it was about what makes a great creative director.
Mhm.
And one of the attributes that they put in there, and I agree with, is when it comes down to the 11th hour, to the bottom of the ninth inning, and nobody's been able to crack the brief, the creative director has to be able to step in and
Yeah,
come up with a game-saving idea.
right.
He just because he graduated from doing the work to directing the work doesn't mean that he doesn't also do the work, particularly when the stakes are high
Yeah.
and the odds are against you. That's when, occasionally have to step in. And I don't think that a good creative director has to be embarrassed about that or should feel bad about that. If anything, I think it builds a legend of a great creative director
I agree.
among his, and it's a good example to set among
Well,
the
and
people he's mentoring.
I think as long as you're giving your people a fair shot. I remember when I had young people working for me at Magera Jesse, what I would do is I would single source an assignment. My GCD partner and I would single source an assignment to a team, and we'd say, okay, we want to do a check-in about 3 days in, just to take your temperature, see how you're doing. And if we don't like what we're seeing, we're going to give you some direction, but we also reserve the right to dive in ourselves depending on whether we think you're going to get there. And a lot of people don't like to hear that, but I think that's fair. We're going to give you a head start and we're going to watch you real close. And if you're not getting there, we're going to be there to help you. And I think some people resent that help, but that's your job.
Well,
Uh,
I think the difference is, are you going to are you going to give them the credit for the idea? Or are you going to take the credit for the idea?
Well, that's an interesting question. I've been at agencies before where a very green team has come up with a big idea, and you don't want to hand your baby over at the time, but junior teams don't get to go to national TV commercials. I saw the Joe Isuzu commercials, right? This is going way back. The Joe Isuzu commercials, the concept of it was arrived at by a junior team working on a dealer group ad. And they went to their bosses and they said, we had this terrific idea. We want to get John Lovitz from Saturday Night Live. We want to get him to get on camera, and he's going to tell lies and the supers are going to tell the truth. And the creative director said, guys, this is a dealer spot for San Diego. You can't do John Lovitz. It doesn't work that way. John Lovitz is going to want 500,000. You got to understand the realities of the business. So the junior team leaves, and then the creative directors start talking. And but that's really a very funny premise. Maybe we could do something with it. And they did Joe Isuzu, right? Now, ultimately, the junior team had their name on everything that got done, but the junior
Okay,
team
good.
didn't go to any of the shoots. And it took a little bit of nudging for the agency to do the right thing. Once it succeeded as hugely as it did, it was almost an embarrassment of riches that came from this junior team's idea. And
Yeah, I see this is where what Henry was saying is true. The legendary creative directors are the ones who will, even if they do come up with the idea, but in this case, as you're explaining, they didn't, they'll still give credit where it's due.
oh yeah,
That's the difference.
and I think if you come up with an idea and they're willing to execute it, then it's as much theirs as it is yours.
Yeah, and how many times have we heard stories about the creative directors who take credit for the idea, even if it
Yeah,
wasn't theirs?
yeah,
So bully for
sure,
you.
sure.
Yeah, that's the case too often. And the flip side of what we were talking about also is the case where the the creative director has a extreme bias toward his own ideas
Yeah.
without
Well,
having a really objective, like, oh, that's a great idea. I wish I had thought of that. Let's present that, which I think is the ideal, right? Like you want that, and at 100% comes through in the book that your philosophy is best idea wins. That's the most important thing,
yeah,
is that the best idea
absolutely.
must win. Anything that gets in the way of the best idea winning is some sort of dysfunction, some sort of
Yeah,
character flaw in the people that are working, some sort of politics, and it's something that's poisonous. When you create a meritocracy, an environment where you say, I'm going to be strict in how I judge ideas, but I don't
right.
care if it comes from the broom closet, from the janitor's closet, the best idea is going to win. I think that's how you build really respectable and respected creative departments.
Sure, and I
Yeah.
think if you look at mischief, uh, they pride themselves on dangerous thinking. I
Mhm.
mean, as a creative person, that's where you want to work. You want to work at that agency where you choose to stay late and you choose to work weekends because you know the opportunity's right there, and all you have to do is come through.
Yeah. So, Mr. 40-year career, let me ask you a big picture question. And I'm really eager to hear your thoughts on this, Cam.
Sure.
So you've seen the Mad Men myth and you've seen the Mad Men reality. What's the
Yeah,
biggest lie our industry tells itself?
wow, that's a good question.
And what's the uncomfortable
Well,
truth behind
it's
it?
interesting. I'll tell you, one of the big half lies is a great idea can come from anywhere. I believe that's true, but it's what you do with that idea once you recognize the idea that oftentimes makes it what it is. When the creative directors at Della Famina saw that Joe Isuzu idea and said, well, it doesn't have to be John Lovitz. They recognized a lot of things that the junior team didn't, right? It could just be a great comedic actor doing that thing. And why would you want it to be a known celebrity, even if the idea is a little bit of a lift? I think instinctively everything they did to the idea turned it into something amazing.
Yeah, that I again, in the spirit of parallels, and I've documented the story here on the Brief Brothers, so I'm not going to go into it, but that was the case for an idea that we did at my agency, and I'm the strategy lead, I'm the head of strategy, so I'm not a creative, but the creatives brought a really great idea to us, but it had no way of being executed.
Yeah,
And I said, the way we execute this idea, because I had worked in that particular industry for over a decade, is like this. And that was what unlocked it. And when we presented it to the client, he said, I've seen this idea before, but what you guys did was you brought a solution on how to execute it that nobody else brought before.
Right.
And that ended up being like one of our most awarded ideas ever in the 50-year history of the agency. So it wasn't my idea. I'm not taking credit for it, but
Sure.
that collaborative process, and that's something that we talk about a lot here. This business is iterative. It's organic. Creativity is organic and iterative, right? Like you
Yeah.
go and you throw something, and then somebody adds something, and then it's like, okay, and then sometimes the client doesn't buy it, but gives you some direction. And a lot of times client direction is bullshit, but sometimes it actually makes things better. And
Yes, that's absolutely true. And it I think it takes every creative person a little bit to realize that a client can be completely right. And if you have the presence of mind to say, you know something, that actually might be something, let us go think on that and come back in a couple of days. If you can walk back in the room and said, you said something that fundamentally made this better, how is that not a perfect formula for selling it to a client?
there's so
If
Yeah.
much turf guarding that,
Yeah.
you know,
right.
Yeah. One of the pleasures that I have, Cam, when we get together face to face is that we just love getting into the weeds about whether it's AI or it's, a campaign or what's going on. And we look up and it's like, oh my God, it's been an hour and we've just been
That's right.
losing ourselves.
Yeah.
So that's why this opportunity to talk to you about bigger issue stuff is fun for me because
Yeah.
we don't do that when we get together, right? So
Sure.
here's
Sure.
another one. Here's another one I would like to hear your thoughts on. So, and I wrote this down. So forgive me if I'm going to sound like I'm reading it because I'm going to read it. In writing these books, you've not just chronicled an industry, you're mentoring from the wreckage.
Okay.
What's one lesson from Madman that you hope 25-year-old creatives absorb, and one you hope a 55-year-old veteran finally faces?
Okay. That's a two-parter.
Yeah, it is.
I mean,
So let's start with a 25,
part of
25-year-old
what
creative.
what the 55-year-old veteran, I can speak from experience, is the at-bats are different when you're my age. The opportunities that are put in front of you are different. I find I get much tougher assignments, but I find I'm able to do more with them now to where people like, God, would never occur to us we could do that for a bank. Well, everybody knows you can do it for a beer, and oftentimes you can basically take a great gag that would work in a beer spot and put it into a mattress spot, and all of a sudden it's incredible.
often the surprise element of it coming from a bank or a
Right.
mattress will actually make it break through more, which
Yeah.
in the end, breakthrough is one of the top things that we can deliver, right? Like if you speak like a bank and you have bank messages, you're just going to sound like Bank of America. And
Right.
if you're the local credit union or whatever, sounding like Bank of America is a bad investment of your ad dollars because people are going to think they heard a commercial for Bank of America.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things that, I mean,
You asked me a two-part question.
yeah, the other one was for the 25-year-old. What would you hope the 25-year-old creative absorbs
oh God,
from this book,
I,
from
I
this
can't.
book?
I would hope that a 25-year-old person would absorb that you can have a lot of fun in this business, and it doesn't mean you have to do can-winning work every year for your whole career, right? I've worked on brands before where I walked in and feel like I walked into something that was just bad, and making it good, they don't give awards for. But if you know that's where the bar is, I think in a way I stopped worrying about awards a long time ago. And when I did, ironically, I started winning a lot more of them.
Mm,
Not because I was entering them, but because the agency was, right?
right.
So I think it's very easy to fall in love with the hustle of being creative or the hustle of wanting to use all the latest and greatest things. And then there's looking at universal truths and understanding if you can tap into the truths, it oftentimes resonates on a deeper level than just a great gag. Like, I love good comedy, but I don't consider myself first and foremost a comedic writer. I think the strategy has to be solved in an interesting way, and then oftentimes it can become funny. But first, you have to find the universal truth, I think,
Yeah.
if
I
there
think
is one.
one of the things that I keep coming back to, we brought this up before in our previous discussions, and that is, um, I think you are a practitioner of never let perfect be the enemy of good.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know that there, and you said this to your son, and you told us a story about something you said to your son, and I love this. You said, sometimes you just need to be able to hit doubles consistently.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
want to swing for the fences, but if you can hit doubles consistently, you're going to solve a lot of problems.
He was interning at an agency, and he called me up and he said, "Dad, all they want is puns for this Mexican restaurant chain. What the hell am I supposed to do?" And I said, "Just shut the door and write as many puns as you can think of it, and give yourself half an hour, and then go present those puns to the account person who's asking you for them."
And you'll probably come up with a few good ones if
Well,
you if you dedicate yourself to it with
Right.
full you, so I would, as a reader and not the author of the book, what I would hope a 25-year-old creative would take away from it is, because you do document a lot of bad times in here, like
mhm.
Mhm.
shitty situations, that I would hope that they would learn that this too shall pass.
Oh
That
yeah,
we see in your telling of the stories, and the other thing I like about it is that it's not chronological. Like, you bounce around through
Yeah.
periods of your career, but we see that, like, you went from one bad situation to a great situation, and then you went into an okay situation, and you took a bad agency and you made it good, and then you went to an awesome agency where it was backbiting and horrible, and
right,
like, so there's a, you know, the point is, it, what it is today isn't going to be like that forever. And
right.
I give a canned speech to ad school students and university advertising students, and the last pontification is, you're going to get fired. Like, this is an industry where you're going to lose an account, the agency's going to lose an account, and you're going to get laid off, or your boss has it in for you for whatever reason, and he's going to, show you the door. And usually it works out, if you, as long as you do the right things and you keep doing the right things, and you make another thing that comes through is the relationships that you establish that keep coming back and playing a role in your career, because you didn't burn bridges. And I think that that's something else that a 25-year-old.
Well, I would hope people do understand that too, because oftentimes, even somebody who wrongs you, sometimes it's just the situation. They were so scared that they made a bad decision, and the decision didn't favor something you did. It's not always personal. It's so easy to. Now, I have had bosses who had it in for me, right? And if that's your situation, that needs to change, right?
Yeah.
But I think you can create a lot of drama that really isn't that's just part of the it's just part of the deal.
I was at an agency once where I had a 2-word resignation letter on the desktop of my laptop for 2 weeks, and it
I can guess
was
the words.
and it was a Mexican standoff between "I quit" and "you're fired." And
Yeah,
fortunately for me, "you're fired" won, because I was able to take severance, and I was already deep into interviews with
right.
what would become my next agency. It was a very fulfilling next role that I had. So again, I've been fortunate enough, and I feel that reading your stories, to fall up sometimes, right?
Yeah,
Like
Yeah.
right, right. Well, I think you earn the privilege of following up if you're decent in how you handle yourself. And even if you lose something that you care deeply about, don't assume it's because your boss hates you or the client hates you. Sometimes it just wasn't meant to be. And
Yeah.
and being able to dust yourself off and come back at it with a new idea. I have succeeded so many times in round 4 or 5 when everybody else was giving up and bad mouthing the client. And instead,
So,
I found a way in on the brief that I went, okay, what if it was just this support point on the brief, and that became the whole idea? And then you realize that's okay. It's okay to have to not check off everything on the brief if the idea is good enough.
Yeah.
So Cam, how have you personally avoided cynicism, or have you made peace with it?
I just don't do well at cynicism. I can be cynical, but I can't dwell. I can't dwell in cynicism. I'm not good at bitch bonding. Um, I was never the boss who would take the teams out and buy them drinks and let them badmouth the client for 2 hours. I know. Let's assume the client had a bad day and give them a benefit of the doubt and try to do something great. And too many times I've been able to walk back in with a better idea around 4 and have the client kiss my feet. And then all of a sudden, this client that everybody is saying is bad is eating out of your hands, and everybody wants to work on the piece of business again, because
Mhm.
you're the guy who hung in there and took the bullets until the moment was right, and then you showed the right idea.
I think I know the answer to this next question, but I want to ask it anyway because I want to hear you say it. What
Sure.
really still turns you on creatively after all these years?
I love I love being told I can't do something and prove I can. I love being asked by a client, "Do you really think this will work?" And I've gotten to a point in my career where I have enough gray hair I can go, "Look, it's your money and you can do whatever you want with your money. I mean that. But if it were me, every instinct I have tells me you should do this, and here's the reason why. I don't come up with something amazing maybe 4 or 5 times a year, right? This is one of those times. I really do think this is amazing, and I think you should buy it.
Hmm.
And I have a very good track record of clients going, well, when you put it that way, let me talk about the things that I'm uncomfortable with, and go, great. And then oftentimes they tell you what they're uncomfortable with, and you go, well, I can't fix that, so let's do something else. It's also, the funny thing is, as a creative person, if you're willing to let go, I think your client's more willing to accept you're a reasonable person. Like I've had clients go, hey, if you make it a family, I'll buy it. And you go, doesn't work as a family, let's just do something else. They respect you for that.
Yeah.
Don't try to glom things on that don't work to make the sale. And I think that's a mistake that's made way too many times.
What one of the oh, go ahead.
I was
Sorry.
just going to ask, when did you know that being a creative director was really your, I don't want to call it your, maybe I should say your calling. When did you know that you were a good creative director? Or how did you know that?
I guess when I could compete against my teams and not have them hate me for it, because they knew I was being fair. They knew they were getting head starts. They knew I wasn't pulling any punches. They knew I wanted them to win, but that doesn't mean I didn't beat them.
Mhm.
And a lot of times I would say to them, look, I've given you enough time. I think a reasonable amount of time to hit a home run. It's time for me to hit a triple. And then I'd hit a triple. And if I had great art direction, oftentimes that's what would win big awards. And I thought, it's only a triple.
The interesting thing about that, and it's just something that I think is in general about creativity, is you saw the brief the day the team got briefed. You gave them a 3 day head start or a however many day head start. But the truth is, your brain was already, whether you actively sat down or
Of
not,
course.
you're already thinking about ideas because that's in your, it's like like, what is
Uh,
it? The
The
scorpion.
DNA.
I'll
It's,
tell you,
it's, it's in your nature.
I'll tell you a funny story. I had a team once show me an idea, and I said, no, I think that's a really good idea. And they said, yeah, we don't like it that much. And I go, okay, then I'm going to work on it because I think it's a really good idea. And the client bought it. So it's like,
Well, look, I haven't been an active or working creative as long as you have, but one of the things that I started to recognize near the end of my career, and I was doing this for 26 years, was that I lost a huge amount of fear. When I was
yeah,
young as a copywriter, every time I cracked a brief and said, "Oh, I got the answer," and it went well, and the client bought it, and it performed well. Next brief was like, "Oh my God, can I do this again?"
yeah,
But
right.
at one point, I don't remember, I can't say it was on this day or this year, but at one point it was like, bring it on. I know I can solve the problem.
Yeah, I think,
I didn't have that fear. It was not that I wasn't excited about it. It's just I didn't fear. I knew I
well,
would solve it.
I guess when you ask me what keeps me excited is knowing that feeling, right? That feeling like, oh, this is going to work,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I think it's you get to that point where you trust your instinct. You just know
Hmm.
your instincts are really refined, right? And oftentimes, I think that the biggest problem that a lot of creators create for themselves is they want to be funny. They always want it to be humor. It's like, don't always look at humor as the solution, because sometimes something very poignant with the right twist will just floor people. And there's a style of humor that I find I call shaggy dog bar humor, right? There are some very good creatives who've done really spectacular work, but to me, I feel like it's really not about the product. It's about them telling a really good gag with the
Hmm.
product's logo on the end of it, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
Um, and there's no knock on there. There are people who do that very well. I think Cliff Freeman did that very well. He could take any product and come up with a comedic premise for it, but that didn't exactly leave you at the end of the commercial going, I am going down and getting a Little Caesars pizza tomorrow, tonight. I'm ordering 3.
Well, the key is how you embed whatever message you have into that. So I'm gonna give credit to the Martin Agency for a lot of the work they've done for Geico
Sure.
over the years, right? So especially at the beginning, incredibly funny gags that had nothing to do with insurance,
Yeah.
but within each piece there was that save 15% or more in 15 minutes, right? And that's also very clever, right? Save 15% or more in 50.
Ah,
It's very easy to remember. And so each time you would see one of those spots, you would pay attention because you wanted to see
yeah, yeah.
what the gag was, and it also embedded that message. The other one that did that brilliantly was The Most Interesting Man in the World,
Sure.
because there was a message embedded in there that even with the self-writing gags, you took away, which was the most interesting man in the world doesn't always drink beer. That's because he drinks
Ah,
fine wine and scotch. And so
ah,
they basically put themselves to compete for drinking occasions, not with Bud Light or with other beers,
right.
but with what was becoming very popular, which was brown spirits and wine, which
Hmm.
I think was extremely clever. So how you can have a shaggy dog gag, but
Right.
it can, if it's cleverly uh, combined with an easy to remember message that advances whatever you're trying to advance, I think that's the home run.
Yeah. Well, have you heard it? Have you heard that formula referred to as the mullet?
No,
When
all
you
business,
create,
all
have you,
party, all business in front, all party in the back.
there you go. I've heard it
Say
referred.
that. Say that again. What was it?
The
They call it
mullet.
the mullet. That comedic formula. Okay, I'm going to front load the offer into the spot, and then something
Oh,
outrageous is going to happen.
okay.
Yeah,
All right.
There's business in the front, party in the back.
yeah,
Got it.
that's like
Got
the
it. Got it.
description of those mullet haircuts.
Yeah, exactly. We all wore one. I did. I
Yeah,
admitted it. Good stuff, Henry.
good stuff, Howard.
He's Henry Gomez.
He's Howard Eibach. Together, we're the Brief Brothers. Till next time. Bye bye.